On today's episode of An Echo of Glory, we look back at that Friday night win at the Palace, assign legacy numbers to our guests, and look forward to Chelsea. Welcome to another episode of An Echo of Glory. I'm 001, and joining me as always, 002, Gary Diamond.
Thanks for having us.
And 003, Jake Robson.
What is this about?
Spurs legacy numbers. An Echo of Glory legacy numbers.
Right.
So I've given you your number.
That's great. I now need to look up who's the real 003.
We're going to come to it.
Right, okay, we'll do that later.
Yeah.
See, we don't just make this up, do we? As we go along.
No, so...
kind of do.
All right, so I had this running order here that I'm just going to... But we are going to start with some club news, because that's where we always start. That much happens every week. Under 21s on 4-2 against Sunderland on Friday night. 7 out of 7, top of the league.
Phenomenal.
Under 18s, hopefully a sign of things to come. Although I'm not sure my heart would take it. Beat Chelsea 4-3 on Saturday, 6 wins out of 7.
Cracking game, that, by the way. Chelsea were leading most of the way through. Chelsea were also unbeaten going into the game, so this was a real top-of-the-table clash. And Spurs came back with 2 very late goals to win 4-3 away from home. Massive win, and sort of game you'd have loved to have watched. But, yeah, I agree with you. If that's the game on Monday...
But the result, absolutely fine.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah. And so top of the league. Women's team didn't play. Top of the league. Men's team did play, which we'll come to. Top of the league.
We are top of the league.
So another week goes by and we're still... Oh, sorry, the women aren't top anymore. City are top, aren't they? But
yeah,
they were top for a bit. And as we said at the top of the show, club announced legacy numbers last week. Every player to make a senior competitive appearance has been given a number, starting with number 1, Stanley Briggs. They went back to the very first competitive match and went alphabetically. And that's a great thing, isn't it, to be number 1 player for Spurs.
001.
That's me.
Right.
But a lot of clubs looked at it and went, that's a really nice idea. So what do you think about it?
I think it's great, but I also think that they've been doing this in cricket for a long time. The England cricket team have had numbers for since I can remember. So, yeah, why not?
Put the numbers on the caps.
I'm so OCD that if my number ended in 49 or 99, it would really annoy me. Like Paul Scholes has 499 Premier League appearances. I want them to do a celebrity kickoff for Paul Scholes Day, so he gets that appearance. It just eats away at me. I think about it quite a lot.
You like rounded numbers?
Yeah, it's my OCD.
What would you play in roulette?
Gambling's bad, Jake.
Right. Okay. Right answer.
Yeah. I was looking at imagining, obviously, that as you do when you grow up, if you had been good enough to have played for Spurs, and what would my number have been? And I reckon I would have become a professional player around the 1998-99 season. Okay. And I'm looking
Who are we talking?
Well,
I'm looking at the numbers in that season. Some great names here. 641, Paolo Tramezzani.
Well, we've mentioned this before, but we have to do the Paolo Tramezzani story. If you're going to mention Gary and I went to... It was at Selhurst Park. It was
Wimbledon away. I don't like to write off a player. I like to give a player a chance. But 10 minutes into that game, I went, my God, this geezer, has he won a competition? I was like, he's dreadful. And you said...
Give him time.
Give him time. And what happened at full time?
He's useless. In fact, I think we got to half time and I went, it was the foul throw after 15 minutes that I think did it.
Absolutely. So we've got 641 Paolo Tramezzani, 642 Mark Gower, 643 Hans Sakers. I mean, this is some real...
You're better than all of those.
Yeah, 644 Luke Young, 645 The Man, Stefan Freund, 646 Patarico, 647 Sherwood, 648 Roger Nilsson, and then 649 the King.
Oh,
okay.
So he saves it.
Yeah.
Mark Gower.
But had I made my
there's
debut?
A name that I can't say I remember.
No, I remember. But had I made my debut the year after, these are the debutants in the 99-2000 season. Chris Perry, Ivan Leonardson, John Pearcey is not a name that I remember at all. Willem Corsten, Simon Davies, Matt Etherington, Dave McEwen, and Gary Doherty. So quite a crop of players there.
Yeah, I remember Dave McEwen. He came on as a sub.
Yeah. What year were you?
Born?
Yeah, but if you were like 18.
Yeah, like 2006.
2000. Let's have a look at your crop.
While he's doing that, Mark Gower, 2 substitute appearances against Brentford.
Right.
Oh, I have to tell you,
League Cup.
you've got a much better crop of players. I like this.
Oh, so I'm not getting in the side.
No, you've got no chance. 2006-2007, number 714, Okoto, 715, Berbatov, 716, the man that went through on goal in the Carling Cup final, Didier Zakora, 717, what's that coming over the hill? Is it Pascal Chimbonda? 718, the man who had his teeth kicked out. Where was that? Fulham, I want to say, maybe. Hossam Ghali. 719, this is a name I don't know. Andy Bartram. 720, a guy that I had high hopes for, Dorian Dervit. 721, Steed Malbronk. 722, Ricardo Rocha. And 723, Adel Tarap. Listen, you had a good crop of players. You wouldn't have got in, mate. Maybe you'd have made the bench.
Ricardo Rocha.
Dave McEwen.
Yeah, Ricardo Rocha.
Dave McEwen.
I remember him.
Yeah,
but come on.
Sorry, I was still looking up Dave McEwen stuff. 4 substitute appearances. Don't remember any of them. But it's good that the club have done this, and everybody to step on the field for Tottenham. It's been remembered. So Jake wouldn't
It's
have got.
funny though to think that you think that you know everything about Tottenham from when you first remember or whatever. And yeah, there's players in there that you're looking.
John
We're both
Piercy.
looking at each other, going,
Couldn't
Talk amongst yourselves, and I'll find you some info on John Piercy. Found it.
Oh, God.
Wow. Okay. John Piercy, 8 appearances.
8 appearances?
9 appearances for Spurs.
Really?
Wow.
Really?
99, 2000 to 2001.
Hey, he might watch the pod.
Came on as a sub in a win against Man United.
Wow.
Right.
There's some legacy right there.
Oh, the Stephen Carr goal in the driving rain. Paul Scholes scored an own goal. That's
I was
2
at
mentions
that
for
game.
Paul
Hang on,
Scholes.
so I was at that game when Steve Carr scored that goal. John Piercy played in that game.
Gary,
Yeah,
I've
he
told you before, 4 pints before the game.
Yeah,
Won't help.
I was a bit younger then. My memory should have been better. I could not say
Came
that.
on as a late sub for Rule Fox.
I remember him.
Anyway.
Yeah.
We move on.
Enough of that.
Enough of that. But a great thing by the club. So another bunch of... Oh, actually, here's a question. What's the last number? What's the current last number?
Oh, hang on.
You're going to answer the question now. Don't do that. I'll look it up. So the last player... Well, who's the last player on the legacy numbers?
It's got to be
879.
Mickey Van de Ven.
Vicario.
879.
Well, it's got to be Van de Ven. How do they decide it between Van de Ven, Vicario?
So now they're doing it based on the next appearance is the next number. So
Van de Ven.
no,
Brennan Johnson.
no,
Oh.
it's Alejo Valise.
Oh.
879.
Of course it is. Right, 879.
So I wonder who'd be next. Probably Ash Phillips. I reckon he's the next cab off the rank.
Next cat. Could be. You'd have thought so.
Well, I hope not, because then we got injuries
Then we
to
got
defenders. Then we got problems. Okay, so we turn our
The
attention.
next one's going to be Ivan Toney.
I was listening to Talk Sport the other day, and I don't know who the guest was, and he said that Ivan Toney wasn't the answer to Tottenham's problems, but if Spurs are going to go on a real title race, Ivan Toney's the answer. And I have to say, I totally disagree.
I disagree with that, but I think he's Chelsea's answer.
Yeah.
When he
Yeah.
was not allowed or wasn't picked to go to the World Cup, a lot of the pundits, ex-players who I have to trust more than my own judgment, said that he would have been the direct replacement for Harry Kane in terms of the attributes that he possesses: hold up, finishing, movement. He's obviously quicker than Kane as well, good in the air. So maybe that's whoever this person you were listening to. Maybe that's where that's come from.
But we don't play that way anymore.
Why not?
But you play to the strength of the players that you have. If we had Harry Kane, would we be playing the exact same way we are at the minute? I think even Ange said this week, if Kane was there, then we might play a bit different, but it'd still amount to the same thing.
And let's not forget Ange. Ange is top notch. If Ange had Harry Kane at his disposal,
Well,
I don't see us being any worse than we've been.
I think we could probably do a whole podcast on how we'd be. It's all speculation, of
And
course.
we will.
We
will.
Okay, right. So Friday night at the Palace, we beat Crystal Palace 2-1. This was a starting lineup. As always, I'm going to refer you to our YouTube channel. If you're listening on Spotify, make your screen big. We're going to utilise the screen. It's got some nice images on today's show that we're going to use, starting with this one, which is just the starting lineup from the game. Vicario in goal, Porro, Romero, Van der Ven, Davies, who was one of 2 changes, in for the injured Udogie.
Are we missing a player?
We are, yeah, it's cut off.
But we all know who it is.
We all know who it is. We're so good we only played with 10. Sarr and Basuma, who came back in for Højbjerg, Kulusevski, Maddison and Richarlison, and Son not on the graphic up front.
But we all know he was there.
We all know he was there.
I didn't know he was there until he scored.
That's a good point, actually. He didn't do much, but he didn't have to. But start with Ben Davies. We like Ben, and he works hard, and he's a good man, and we're all sad when he lost his dog and happy when he found it. We've talked about the drop-off so often, but we haven't actually had a situation where we've really needed to see it. We've talked about the drop-off from the centre-halves to Phillips or Dyer. Thankfully, we've not had to see it yet. We saw it in real time on Friday night. Davies didn't have a good game. They kept launching it over him. That was their one tactic, was to launch goal kicks over him. I noticed after 35 minutes that he was waving to the bench. He wanted to come off. There was clearly an injury. I don't know if he'd have come off anyway, but there was definitely a problem. But he didn't play well. And the fact that Emerson, who's a right-back, comes on and probably had a better game, shows we've got a real issue there.
The problem with that position, I think, is that, well, not I think, the fact is you've got to be quick, because that is the way for teams to get at us, because the two fullbacks tuck in, don't they? So that's where the space is. So you've got to be super quick, and you've got to be very good on the ball. Those aren't his strengths.
Jake hates saying bad things about Spurs.
I like Ben Davies. Ben Davies has been a very good servant to Tottenham. I would never have had him down as our first choice left back in any of the time he's been there. He's always been basically the second choice, and that's unfortunately when he can come in and get shown up. Yeah, I don't want to say too many bad, because I think he's been a good enough servant for the club. I think but the fact remains is we've always said this. Everyone's said it. For Wales, for England, he's better going back than he is going forward, and this system does not suit him one little bit.
That's a great point.
He's a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah, better going back than he is forward, and I think when we talk about upgrades in January, that's definitely a spot.
Yeah, you look at the fact that we've loaned out Reguilon to United, who by all accounts is doing a very good job there. And I can't help but think, there's patience.
In training, maybe.
Is he?
No, he was. They were raving about him in the first couple of games. Yeah, they liked him. They were talking about signing him, and at some point, we were talking about.
I'll drive.
Well, yeah, exactly. But you've got to think to yourself, he would be better suited in this system than Ben Davies, and I agree with you.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I agree with you that Ben Davies is not somebody that I want to speak badly of in any way, because he's clearly a great model professional. He's been an outstanding servant to Tottenham. I think he's the sort of guy who knows he's not a first-team player, but this is as good as it will ever get for him. And he's a great guy to have around the club. But ultimately, I completely agree with what Jake said, that in this system, he's going to get found out. Fortunately, he had to come in a game where if you could choose one, it probably would have been them.
Yeah. Especially without Eze or Elise down that right-hand
all
side.
Attacking threat gone.
Oh, that's another thing. First of all, we've not beaten anyone, and now if we do beat someone, they're nobody, and you've beaten them without their two best players. Sorry about that, everybody.
Them the breaks.
Yeah.
We should have postponed until they were back.
Well, Arsenal did when they called off that COVID game.
Yes.
But we started slowly again. I felt we started slowly. I know you said against Fulham that we probably started better than I said. But again, I did think we started slowly against Palace, and I thought Maddison was trying too hard, which is the one criticism I have on him. I said against that Luton game, something was irking me a little bit. I think sometimes he tries a little bit too hard, but he's such a wonderful player. But my problem in the first half especially was Richarlison, and especially Richarlison and also Porro. They're just possession bleeders. Like the ball just goes to them, certainly Richarlison, and we just kept giving the ball away.
Porro, again, I would say is possibly not suited. He's looked all right, but Porro was actually he was a wing back, wasn't he, when we signed him, or did he even play higher up for?
He's played on the wing. Lisbon.
Yeah, he was essentially a winger, and this system is all about the fullbacks getting on the ball in the middle of the park.
He's certainly been better.
He has been better. He's definitely been better, but. Again, that's not the position that he has learnt to play in his career. I possibly think that he is another square peg in a slightly round hole. Yeah, I do, because I think the way that the Ange wants the fullbacks to play are to tuck in and get on the ball and be the second and third midfielder alongside Bissouma, 3-6s almost, in possession. And Porro is very quick. His crossing is pretty good. We haven't seen much of his finishing, but he's very good going forward. And I haven't seen him and Udogie. I've seen them get forward, but I haven't seen them in the positions that I would have expected Porro certainly to be in, getting round the outside, putting crosses in.
Udogie does that more.
Udogie does that more.
I think Porro's more of a square peg with sort of rounded edges.
He's better in that position than, say, a Ben Davies would be, but his best position would be as a wing-back, a traditional wing-back. And that's not the position that Ange has him playing at fullback in this system.
I await Gary's response.
I think it's slightly unfair because actually we've been speaking very highly of Porro throughout this season so far, and he is playing a new position. He is learning and adapting, but I also think it's unfair when, as a team, the level of performance wasn't as good as it has been. Palace didn't really want to do anything. They didn't want to come and attack us. And we didn't really look as a team as though we knew how to break them down. The one thing we say when you play these low block teams is how quickly you have to move the ball. And we weren't doing that. And this isn't on Porro, it's not on Richarlison. The team as a whole, I didn't think were moving the ball quick enough. And actually we saw in the second half when even if it wasn't the ball that was moving quick enough, the team as a whole were pressing much quicker and much more aggressively and upping the tempo. And as soon as they upped the tempo, Palace fell apart and they couldn't really deal with it.
Exactly that. From that.
So whether it was moving the ball quicker or whether it was getting on them quicker, the team as a whole in the first 45 minutes didn't respond to a low block in the way that they should have done. And it was a very nothing game, that first 45 minutes, to be honest. We just didn't really look. You said Maddison was trying too hard. I think he realised that actually he needs to create something. He needs to try and make something happen. And I think
I just feel sometimes so that he gets the ball and he does a lot of chopping, left foot, right. I'm like, get it in the box. I know we're possibly not going to score.
Get in the mixer.
We're not going to score that many headers this year with Son in the box. But there's sometimes I feel it's like.
But here's the problem, right? Is when you've got Son up front. And he went and got himself a great goal. And when we look at where that goal came from, it actually came from our own penalty area, where we literally, we invited them onto us, and we'll come to this as well. And in those situations where you can get a bit of space and Son can get in behind, or we can get in behind rather, then great, Son's fantastic. But when you've got a low block and you've got Maddison on the ball trying too much, is he trying too much, or is he trying to find a way through that low block that Son doesn't offer with his back to goal, unfortunately? And that's where we need to be a bit cleverer and understand how to break these teams down a bit more. Something that I don't think we do. We didn't do it against Fulham. We didn't do it against Palace. I'd like to see us taking more shots from 20, 25 yards because that forces the defence to step out. If they know you're prepared to shoot, they're forced to step out, and then you can create the opportunity to slip it in. But I don't actually remember us taking a shot from distance, and it doesn't matter if it's not a great shot. Yeah. It's the intent, and the intent is, okay, if you're going to drop deep, we're just going to be cracking it from here, and one of them will go in, so you're going to have to step out onto us. And as soon as they step out, bang, then you can slip it in. But we didn't try and mix it up anything like enough. So I think the criticism is on the team rather than Richarlison or Porro or an individual in that first half.
The other thing is, Jonny, the two games that came to mind off the top of your head were Luton and Palace, and they're two teams that are going to sit back and make it difficult. I wouldn't have said he was trying too hard against United or Arsenal or maybe Fulham.
No, I'm probably going to get stick for that. I don't know what I mean. There's just
You're going to get a lot of stick for that.
Yeah,
they're going to be coming for you.
I probably deserve it.
Maddison, by his own admission, says that he is a player that wants to try things, and most of the time it won't come off, but it only needs to come off once or twice in a game for him to be a hero. And that's quite right. Like, I don't mind him trying these things. That's what he's there to do. He's there to try these things. I just think that the players around him need to do more to help him try those things and understand that he's going to be trying to make things happen. And like we said, Son was off our graphic. I don't like criticising Son or any other player, but Son was anonymous in that game, basically until he scored. And he can be anonymous in these games where you have lower block teams.
Sure.
And that's something that I think going forward, we just spoke about Ivan Toney. Would have been perfect in a game like that. Would have been absolutely perfect and given us a lot more, I think, than a Son up front.
The only other thing is...
But that's not a criticism of Son, because I think against Chelsea, where we're going to have more space, I think he could do some real damage.
The other thing is, you're saying... I get what you're saying about we need to be better at breaking teams down. We've managed it, though, haven't we?
I was going to say, it doesn't... We can say these things, and these are not criticisms. I think they're just...
You're sort of thinking these as you're watching the game.
It's been 10 games.
Yeah.
And even Ange said it certainly against Fulham, he wasn't happy.
Yeah.
I think any manager would sit there and say, well, how do we improve? How do we get things better? And just from a fan's point of view, what I would like to see would be a bit more of what we've been discussing. It's not criticism, it is how can we be better?
Is this the moment where Johnson becomes a starter? For me, the jury's out. We spent a lot of money. I think he's a good player. I thought the pass from Sarr was good. The header into Maddison was brilliant. He carried on his run and a lovely cross. Great goal. He's involved in that. I think managers wait for that opportunity to drop a player.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is this the moment now where he says to Johnson, right, you're in Monday night?
I think actually a lot has to do with, in this case, when you haven't got that many options behind him, is it better for the team to have him coming on as a sub rather than starting him from the beginning and taking him off? Because then who are you bringing on? You'll bring perhaps Richarlison on, who might not have the kind of impact. You can almost carry a player when you start him a bit more than if you're bringing him on as a sub. You want him to give you that impact for the last half an hour. So I wonder, and I've said this before, I think the job that Richarlison does for the team, probably defensively, certainly in the press, is probably keeping him in the team, and certainly from the start of the game is probably why I think Ange will probably stick with him for Chelsea.
I think I agree with you as much as I've sat and repeatedly criticised Richarlison. I think his work, I'm not saying Johnson doesn't work, but I think his work rate and also the fact that the front three have played together a few games in a row now, you're right. I think he might just stick with Richarlison.
I'd go with Johnson. I'd 100% go with Johnson.
And I would in my head because I think he's a better player, but I just feel for consistency he might just stick with him.
But he's a great option off the bench as well.
I think against a team like Chelsea that will come at us much more, and we should be able to find a bit more space. They will play higher up the pitch, and I just think somebody with the pace of Johnson has got to start against them. And I also think, we have to come to a point with Richarlison where it's like, okay, is he going to be a left winger, or is he going to be a backup striker, or even push for striker? and we're talking about Richarlison on the left wing. I think we've got a hugely talented prospect, and people might not agree with me, but in Brian Hill, who's now fit on the bench, I would rather see Johnson start, Hill be his replacement, and you say to somebody like Son and Richarlison, you two are going to fight it out for that spot.
It's a good problem to have.
It is a good problem to have, but I would start him without question.
Do you know what I was thinking as we were talking about breaking teams down and, we need to try and do that better? Beginning of the season, it was, I just want to see some good football. Now we're talking about how we can win better.
Great, isn't
it's just great, isn't it? What good times.
Win better.
Well, that's what we're talking about, because we won every game bar one, and we're saying we want to break teams down, more efficiently, which is essentially saying I would like us to be more comfortable in these games.
At the beginning of the season,
it was
bar 2.
Huh?
I'm going to have to correct you there. It's bar 2.
Bar 2. Sorry, yeah, because I always forget about Brentford.
I was thinking that
felt like a win.
How long ago? That feels like a different time.
Yeah,
that game was so weird. We'd got rid of Kane the day before.
Yeah, literally the day. 2 days before.
Well, I think he actually went on the Saturday.
Yeah.
It just feels like almost a different era.
Yeah.
Like it was just a bit of a hodgepodge. They were like, right, just go and play this game, get through it.
Just get through it.
And they did get through it. And since then, we've really have seen the United game was next, and we've really seen Ange ball take effect. Hodgson ball in effect on Friday night at Palace. Were they at 2-0? I'm going to bring up this pass map actually again on our screens. This is Christian Romero
on our screens at
Launchpod Studios.
Launchpod Studios, Echo of Glory on YouTube. Go check it out.
This is taken from Opta. This is Romero's pass map to Vicario. This got Crystal Palace fans really irked. Were they booing us?
No.
They were booing them, weren't they?
I was watching this. I was watching the game with a mate, and I was saying, if I was a Palace fan right now,
I'd be fuming.
I would be steaming because they were disgusting.
No, I'm sorry. You were steaming, probably.
they were. Their attitude was absolutely disgusting. They're 1-0 down because I reckon 90% of these happen at 1-0. Right? I don't think that happens at 0-0. I think a lot of that. And why wouldn't we? We were literally saying to them, right, okay, we're 1-0 up now. Come out.
Which is what we want.
And our second goal was fashioned 5 or 10 minutes before when we had a period like this, when it went from Romero, Vicario, Van der Ven, back. And I'm watching it and I'm like, I don't care because we're 1-0 up, right? And I can see what they're trying to do. They're literally saying, if you're not going to come at us, then we'll just win the game 1-0 and you won't touch the ball again. Yeah. Palace fans must have been screwing because it was disgusting. However, on the flip side, you saw what happened when they did press. They don't really know how to do it. And we went bish, bash, bosh 2-0. And it all came from the booing, the pressure that the Palace fans were putting on the team to try and get into the game. But the team kind of knows if we go, we're going to get picked off here. Yep. But they were caught betwixt and between and didn't really know what to do. And sure enough, the quality that we have in the team finished them with an absolutely brilliant goal. But it was really poor from Palace.
141 passes, Romero, which is the most of any Spurs player in a single Premier League game since Opta started those records back in 2003. Defenders passed the ball a lot, but like you were saying, Gary, that was Palace's problem. Not ours.
I also think that the way Palace will look at it and Hodgson will look at it is their battles are, he's saving their battles for another day. He doesn't see, I don't think they'll necessarily, Tottenham is a kind of, it's a bonus game for them, really. If they can get anything out of it, great.
No, come on.
I disagree,
think you're
Jay.
a mid-table Premier League
Friday
club.
night, we go on about the atmosphere at Selhurst. If they
the hardest thing for me going into that game was exactly that. It was the Friday night.
If you
said to me Saturday at 3 o'clock, I'd be like, yeah, we'll beat them. But Friday night, it's 8 o'clock kickoff, a few beers, under the floodlights, with Palace, all of that nonsense, right?
Do that again?
Oh, shut up, right? But with their little black flags and God knows what else, right? I mean, but it's a hard place to go, and they're a mid-table team. And the fans had a right to boo because you would expect more. And you can say, I agree with you, their season isn't going to be defined by a home defeat to Tottenham. But that performance lacked any courage or balls or anything from them. And I put myself in the position of a Palace fan, and I would have been fuming because I thought it was disgusting from them.
We agree they were booing them and not us.
100%. Yeah. And they've got to expect more. Palace themselves, the team, Hodgson, they've got to expect more. I mean, I don't really care because they're not my problem. But I was watching. Like, I was laughing at them. Like, you're a joke. This is a joke team, and they were missing Elise and
Eze.
And of course that makes a big difference. And I'm sure that when they come to us, later in the season, and they will sit deep, but they'll have that threat on the break if those two are fit. It will be a bit of a different game, and they'll pose more of a threat. But the other night, they were a disgrace to themselves.
They did score. It was handball. I mean, come on. Yeah. It was a good finish, to be fair to the bloke, but was a good finish. Porro was poor. Poor
Porro.
But he did sort of make up for it. There's big talk about this guy, França. Come on, supposed to be a bit of a player, but it was a poor finish. But Porro certainly did his job, making it very difficult to find an angle. That would have been an awful. They would have been so lucky to get out of that with a draw. That would have felt like a defeat.
That would have felt like a defeat.
But that handball is something that I can't get my head around. And actually going back to the Liverpool game, and I, since that game, Liverpool have had a number of penalties, a couple of big handball decisions go their way, and I think there was a stat knocking around. Something along the lines of, since that game, Spurs had over 45 fouls committed against them with not one booking until the 90th minute of that Palace game. And then there was that handball in there as well. Like, there is continued fouling on players, and you can see that in the previous games and the Palace game.
I did feel Palace just kicked us for the first hour.
Exactly, and nothing happened. The referee did nothing, didn't help at all. And it was similar to the game before, but to have 50 fouls or thereabouts made against you and no booking, and then you see that handball, I don't know. It doesn't
it's
feel...
It's not a conspiracy, but it's irrelevant because we're top of the league.
No, it is a conspiracy, and everyone is against us.
But we're still top of the league.
You can see why Klopp made such a big thing, because he knows it's not about that game; it's about what happens after. And
I'm sure pressure. I'm not saying it helps, but managers do it for a reason. But anyway,
he's put enough pressure on that they're now getting decisions.
Whatever.
And we're not.
We're top of the league. Here's a great tweet from Duncan Alexander, Oily Sailor on Twitter. On our screens here, Spurs have a record of 8-2-0 after 10 games. A lovely tribute to Antonio Conte's favourite formation.
It
would have been... We'd probably have won there under Conte. Actually, no, didn't we get... That was Mourinho. We lost 3-0. That was a dreadful performance. But we've discussed it ad nauseum, but it's so much more fun now, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, that Mourinho performance, that was...
It came on the back of an international break and everybody was injured, but it was still...
To be fair...
dross.
It wasn't a good performance, but it was 0-0, if I remember right, up until Tanganga lost his...
Oh, yeah.
Sent off. And he got 2 bookings in the space of a minute or so for 2 ridiculous challenges, got sent off, and then that was that. And even then, I think they had a bit of luck. But, it's chalk and cheese now, isn't it? And we go to a place like Palace, and we were saying on the pod before, in the build-up to the game, that we all expected us to win. And I think that's the difference.
I actually predicted a draw.
Did you actually? Oh yeah, you did.
And I was nearly right.
I think I predicted 2-1 with a close game, expecting it to be much tougher than it was. The hardest thing about it was that we just didn't really play very well, but then we didn't really need to play very well in the end, and the class shone through. I mean, that second goal was just a thing of beauty. It really was.
And it's still 2 goals plus in all but one game this season, which is just... Luton was the one we scored 1 in.
Should have had more.
Should have had...
3 up after
Exactly.
10
So
minutes.
we're I mean, it's incredible. Not only... This is what I'm saying. Not only are we winning most of the time, we're also scoring two goals minimum each game
Yeah, it's
in
great.
the first 10 games. I mean...
Yeah.
Where's this come from?
Well,
Well, the guy in the middle.
But before we do move on, can we
the
just
ref.
Well, Ange, middle of the dugout.
can we just have a little shout out? I know Palace didn't do much, but they had one effort in the first half. I mean, Vicario made 2 saves. One was a sort of a standard save, but the save low down to his left was an absolutely brilliant save.
It reminded me of my save 2 weeks ago, actually, but no one's seen it. So
No, I don't. But it was a brilliant save, and at 0-0. If you go 1-0 down,
same against Fulham.
Yeah, he made a big save then as well, and he's not having to make loads of saves, I don't think. But
He's got the best save. He's got the best save percentage in the Premier League, and you can look at that and go, "Oh God, are we letting in lots of shots, giving away lots of shots?" But regardless of whether you're letting in a lot of shots or not a lot of shots, he's making the saves.
Yeah,
he's had 1 save against, 2 saves against Fulham.
Yeah,
from the header and then Jimenez.
Yeah,
key moments.
Yeah,
because that Jimenez scores that. And it's, as you say,
I think he's really starting to establish himself as a very, very good keeper.
He's a good keeper.
Mm.
And I'm very close to changing my 5-a-side selection.
I'll tell you what, also, I forever have said to people and have been of the opinion that signing players from abroad is less preferable than signing the equivalent person from the Premier League.
All right, Paul Merson.
No, but wait, hear me out on this, because if they've got Premier League experience, I think having Premier League experience probably adds 10 million, 5 million onto their fee.
Yeah, there's
but
a Premier League tax.
There's a Premier League tax, but I also think that's offset, by having the experience of the league. And it worries me when we sign players, especially young players from abroad. And I always said goalkeeper, centre-back and striker are the 3 positions that you will get shown up the quickest if you make a mistake. And how difficult it is for players to come in and adapt and hit the ground running straight away. And we've got 2 of them. We've got Van de Ven and Vicario, who have been 2 of the best players in the league this season. They're both young. They've both come in from abroad.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen very often.
And when we signed Vicario, there was a lot of graphs going around about data and where you put Vicario on these things, and he was very, very high up. So, it's about scouting, it's about analytics and data, and the proof seems to be in the pudding that actually that's the right way to go.
And it's about watching and listening to Echo of Glory, because we had Patrick Kendrick on, didn't we? Who's an Italian football expert, watches a lot of Serie A, and he said that he was the best keeper in Serie A last season. So there you go.
Well,
that was over the summer.
He's left Empoli, who are now 3rd bottom with the 3rd worst defence in the league, and they miss him. Unquestionably,
it's not a metric that anybody goes by. But if you play fantasy football, he's top of the goalkeeper stats, which on a basic level, I mean, you get points for clean sheets, saves, this kind of thing, and he's top after.
Such a shame that he didn't get the clean sheet the other day. That annoyed me. That annoyed me.
Yeah, I think it annoyed all of them. They were all seemed very annoyed.
Suddenly people are saying, looking at Onana, looking at David Raya, and we've brought this guy in that nobody had heard of. United and Arsenal fans are saying, what on earth's going on?
Yeah.
Another stat, most points from their first 10 Premier League games.
Yeah.
Big Ange, top. We're top of another league. Big Ange top. He's beaten Goose. He's beaten Maurizio Sarri, Carlo Ancelotti, all at Chelsea, and John Gregory. Frank Clark of Nottingham Forest was also on that list, so it doesn't always.
Yeah, but that was before football began, wasn't it?
It was in the Premier League, but look,
it was?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 93, 94, I think. But just goes to show how well he's doing. We know how well he's doing. We can see it with our eyes, but it's always good to see with the numbers as well.
You've seen, you no doubt will have seen the other stat doing the round about where teams have finished.
Yeah, they're ready
come the end of the season.
They're ready to shoot us down
with a start like this as well.
But we don't.
No, I'm just saying that's another stat that's doing the rounds, isn't it?
I was with someone the other day who showed me a WhatsApp from an Arsenal fan who was saying to him, "You guys getting above your station." I don't know any Spurs fan that is sitting there thinking, we're all probably every now and then going, "Oh God, could we?" I'm not saying it out loud. Certainly not after 10 games. Maybe we'll have that discussion in January.
As usual, it's everyone else that's saying it.
Because they want us to. Because when it goes wrong, or if it goes wrong, then we told you so.
100%.
Wow.
No, it's no different to what we did to Arsenal last season. There's, we thought they were above their station. We thought it would come to an end. I was hoping it would come to an end much sooner than it actually did because it got a bit nervy. But as soon as they bottled it, and they did, we were ready to really stick the knife in.
But were we all saying they were going to win the league?
They were saying they were going to win
the
league. They absolutely were. We're not saying that we're going to win the league. But look, ultimately, I'd much rather somebody is sticking the knife into me because we don't quite win the league than sticking the knife into me because we're absolute crap.
Because we're going to get relegated.
The celebration police were out again on the back of Friday night. The Spurs players went over and they're cheering and celebrating with the fans. And someone like Billy T on Twitter said, if you think... Someone said, Spurs celebrating like they've won the league. And he said, if you think that's how we're going to celebrate, there will be deaths when we win the Premier League. So that's not how we're going to celebrate. If we were, there were little, clapping. No, that's not.
I'm actually scared of what would happen if we won the league. I almost don't want us to win the league because there could be danger.
My wife does listen. I'm not coming home. About 3 days.
Possibly longer.
Okay, so...
Sleep on the high street.
Fine. Next up, though, is the return of Mauricio Pochettino.
Who?
Well, a man who has divided opinion. I went off him a long time ago, by the way, even when he was Spurs manager. But I was going to say it's a conversation for a different day. Maybe it's a conversation for now.
Over the summer, I'd have had him back. We'd have all had him back, wouldn't we? No.
I wouldn't. I would have him back in the future. But I felt that it was too soon and he couldn't come back whilst there were players who played under him the last time. And, I felt as well that actually he needed a good tenure somewhere else, preferably not Chelsea, before he came back to us.
Yeah.
So I don't think it was the right time. I was not singing for him.
I felt his race was run longer before he left. And people said, we didn't get that. He didn't get any spending money and blah, blah, blah. But I just think tactically he'd gone at Spurs. He did need a big refresh and he never got it. I get that. But I feel even before then, I know we got to the Champions League final, but we didn't win away for a year. And anyway, I'm not going to go fully there. He's coming back on Monday.
He's lost 24 league games for Spurs. So from that Burnley defeat, when the wheels really started coming off, if you remember 2019.
When he had a row with Mike Dean.
He had a row with Mike Dean. So including that game, he played 24 league games, won 5, drew 7, lost 12.
Yeah.
I mean, that it was falling apart.
Refresh or no refresh, that team was good enough not to have that record.
It was, but look at Liverpool last season. They did. Where were they after 24 games? There was a suggestion. Well, you can tell us.
They hadn't won just 5. I reckon.
No, they were doing a bit better than that. But then they probably was maybe starting from a higher bar. I don't know.
But the difference was
they were 8th.
There you go.
10 wins.
Okay,
a bit further on.
So, but there was also the language behind it all, and Klopp's always.
They were 6th.
Klopp's always been, I'm at Liverpool, but very sort of passionate on that. Pochettino, you could see that something, I don't want to say something had died inside him, but something had gone. The energy wasn't there, the enthusiasm wasn't there. And at the time that he, eventually departed, I thought it was the right thing.
What do you give him on Monday? What do you think will happen? He's not going to get booed, and why should, and absolutely not, of course not. When he comes, is he going to get a clap?
Is there a suggestion that he'll get booed? No.
I've seen some people ignore those people on Twitter, obviously.
These people seem to come up on your timeline. They never come up on mine.
They probably don't even go to the games
They definitely don't go.
But do we clap him? Does he get a very little rendition of the song before kickoff? What happens?
See, I was thinking. I
wouldn't be surprised if there's a little murmur from somewhere of the Pochettino song before kickoff, and then that's it. I won't sing it personally. I'd certainly clap him. I hope he does well. Like you say, not for Chelsea. I've got no problem with the guy. Loved him.
See, I can wait. I can see Gary is waiting he's like a coiled spring here, about to pop. But I will say, the one thing I was going to say is I would have been up for a little sing-song when he comes out of the tunnel. The problem that I have with it now is that it's Chelsea. If he
came back with Inter or something.
Well, definitely with a foreign team, but even, I don't know, Everton or something, then you would, wouldn't you? Now it just feels weird, doesn't it? Singing, and I would sing for him 100% because he's the best. In my life, we've had this before.
For sure.
He was the best manager we've had so far. And
I've just shown you that graphic.
It was just great. Yeah, well, exactly. It was just great times, wasn't it? And the memories, I know it went sour in the end, but the memories that we got along the way were top notch.
Unquestionably.
It's just and I don't even care that much that he went to Chelsea anymore, especially when you look at how things are now. But Gary, I can't stop. I can't hold you back.
No. It's not a cold spring. It's a look of confusion because I have been thinking about this, and I wouldn't boo the guy. I could never boo the guy. But I agree with. I think you guys took the words out of my mouth. If he had come back and his first visit back to us was with a foreign club, you know, you could have the stadium would have been singing his 100%. Name, like, you know, to the roof, and it would have been brilliant. But he's coming back with Chelsea, and I don't even begrudge him really going to Chelsea because I feel as though he wanted us. I feel as though he may have waited for us, but it was clear that we weren't going to go for him.
Yeah.
So at that point, why should he not go to Chelsea? You know, they're a big club. It's an ambitious move. We have to remember that, you know, club legend and hero Glenn Hoddle played for and managed Chelsea. Okay, so you know these things happen, and I think in the future, after he's done his inside agent job at Chelsea and you know really screwed them by spending a load of money and getting absolutely nowhere, go somewhere else, do a great job, and come back to Tottenham. But as for Monday night, it is a difficult one because certainly can't boo him. I'd never disrespect the guy. I've got a huge love for him, but I would find it hard as well, I think, to clap him as manager of Chelsea before us playing Chelsea. So it was a look of confusion. I really don't know, and I probably won't know until the moment.
Clap him, but not sing him, maybe.
I think, do you know what? I'm there for Tottenham on Monday night. I couldn't care less about Chelsea or anything to do with Chelsea. Yeah. So I will clap my team, I'll support my team, and it's not about Pochettino, it's about Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. And it's a shame that his first visit back is with them because it would have been nice to have given him that honour. Yeah. But it is what it is. He's there with them, and hopefully in the future he'll get the opportunity to come back and get the adulation that he does actually deserve.
Having said all that, could all bets be off after 4 pints?
100%. 100%.
So when we played Arsenal, we didn't hear from...
I think I'm painting a very bad picture of Gary.
Nah, not at all. I'll just like a beer for a game. It's just anybody who knows me knows.
6 pints.
When we played Arsenal, we didn't have an opposition voice on the show, but Chelsea just that tiny little bit on that less, just underneath Arsenal.
Oh, it's funny. I mentioned Glenn Hoddle just now, and I feel like at the time there was, maybe I was just younger, but it didn't feel like there was the rivalry between Tottenham and Chelsea then that there is now. It feels as though it's grown over the years, particularly as I think both teams have become bigger in stature over the last sort of 15, 20 years. But for me, it's always been Arsenal. There isn't another one. I mean, West Ham to me are an absolute irrelevance, and the only reason I want us to beat them is because I find them annoying. It annoys them, and it's hilarious that it is their cup final and how much that means to them. Chelsea, I just think a horrible, disgusting club.
But it's like West Ham. We're their big game.
Yeah,
but anyway,
exactly. But they're not. But it's not. To me, it's not. I don't really care. My game is Arsenal,
of course. But we are going to hear from a Chelsea fan. Should we do it now?
Yep.
Let's do it. Delighted to be joined by broadcaster and Chelsea fan Liv Buzaglo. Liv, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So when we interview or chat to opposing fans, I always start with a very simple question. How's your season going? Give us a summary. But that's not an easy question for a Chelsea fan. But in your eyes, give us an idea of what is going on at Stamford Bridge at the moment.
Do you know, I actually find it's quite an easy question, Jonny, because it's the way I look at it is Chelsea are playing well, just can't score goals. And that's been the case for no word of a lie, probably about 4 years now. Like when I think back to Frank Lampard's first stint, I think we probably took Tammy Abraham for granted, really. But we've struggled in front of goal. And actually, I'd be a lot more worried if Chelsea were playing badly. But actually, a lot of games this season, we've actually played pretty well. I think bar Forest and the second half of Brentford on the weekend. But apart from that, we've actually been playing quite well. So it's actually quite hard to take those results that we've had. But actually looking forward, I'm not as worried as perhaps other people maybe are.
So it's just 3 wins, Luton, Fulham and Burnley, but draws with Liverpool and Arsenal. Is it those games that are giving you the confidence to say what you're saying?
I mean, Luton, Burnley and Fulham, I sort of like, yeah, great, we expected to beat those, but it's our 2 best performances of the season have been Liverpool and Arsenal. And that's why I'm not as... You look at the fixtures Chelsea have got coming up, but actually I'm more confident for these fixtures than I am for Brentford at home and Forest at home, because Chelsea just play better when teams don't sit back. We cannot break teams down when they sit back in 2 banks of 4. We struggled every game pretty much this season unless we score early. That's the difference. If Chelsea score early, it's a game changer for us. But the longer it goes on without scoring, we just get in our own heads and we have chances and we just miss them. So actually, I'm pretty confident. Oh, maybe confident's the wrong word, but I'm a little bit more optimistic for the run of games of Spurs, Brighton, Newcastle, United. Maybe not City because they'll probably beat us anyway. But because of the way you guys play.
Yeah. Liv, would you say at this moment, with the way the season has started, that Pochettino still has the full backing from the fans? And how long does the sort of period of grace last before, if the results don't come, it goes the wrong way for him?
Yeah, I think, if you look on social media, you've always got those idiots that are like, get Poch out, but I refuse to even associate myself with any of them, to be honest, because we've seen how it goes when I believe he's the right man for the job. And if I didn't, I would say it. I wouldn't just come out and back him for no reason. I genuinely believe that. I've seen enough in the first 10 games to suggest that it's going to go well. I think this run of games now is really important for us. I think we have to get a statement win or 2 against a couple of the big sides, or just in the bigger games. Like, I consider Newcastle a big game. Yeah. We have to get a couple of statement wins, I think, because our performance against Liverpool deserved a win and our performance against Arsenal deserved a win, and we didn't get them. And I think that's just the inexperience of the side at the moment, and I'll fully accept that. So I believe he's going to be given time. I believe even if it doesn't go as well as Chelsea fans hope over the next few games, just don't see the point. What's the point in giving him, I think he's got full control over players now, and whether we sign players in January as well. And I like what Poch is doing, and it's hard sometimes not to say that, because you look at the results and you think, how 3 wins out of 10.
Sure.
But the performances are so different from the results, so that's what I'm sort of clinging on to at the moment. But I still think he's got a lot of time in the bank. I really do.
What was the reaction post Arsenal? Because you say he deserved to win, but 2 up. He made a few subs. One of my criticisms of Poch was his substitutes as Tottenham manager, certainly at the back end. Was there any criticism of him after that game?
Yeah, there was. And I think a few people would have question marks over starting 11s and certain players playing in certain positions, but especially after that Arsenal game, I think it was the taking off of Cole Palmer and the taking off of Mykhailo Mudryk. Those 2 players, especially Cole Palmer, he's come in and he's hit the ground running. He's been Chelsea's best player since he signed. He's been absolutely brilliant against Brentford as well. He was the only bright spark. So I think there have been a few questionable decisions. And, I look at that Brentford game and playing Disasi at right back when you've got Malo Gusto and Reece James on the bench, it didn't quite make sense to me, especially because that physical aspect of Brentford have basically gone when Ivan Toney left. They were much better, quicker players on the counter, and you'd want a Gusto or a Reece James in those situations. There has been a few criticisms of him. It hasn't been perfect. And I think the Mudryk one, we all want to see Mudryk play. We've all got, Chelsea fans have just got a little special thing for Mykhailo Mudryk, and we can't explain it. But I think we're slowly starting to see it. And I think if he's fit for the game against you lot on Monday, I believe he'll start. And I think that's the game that would be perfect for a player like him. But there has been a few little decisions that I think Chelsea fans have questioned.
Well, also, that brings me on to the game then. Do you think Jackson's going to start? Because obviously Cole Palmer looked really good playing through the middle, didn't he, against Arsenal and in the couple of games before? Didn't have as much of an influence, did he, at the weekend? Where's he going to go with it? And obviously Jackson was out, he brought him back in.
Do you know, Cole Palmer, to be fair to him, he tried. He couple of brilliant balls that eye of the needle that we just can't finish. And he had a chance himself that he sort of just, I don't know, it's just like stretched. It was just too far gone. But I think Jackson, I think he's just inexperienced, young. There's been a few games where I've been like, I'm really seeing something here, like for the future. But then again, against Brentford, it was just an off game. Everything about his game was just off. I love Armando Broja. I love him. I think he's got everything that you need to be a brilliant striker. But with his injury, and obviously came back for a game, he scored, albeit a little lucky goal against Fulham, but we'll take it. He then got injured again, or he's not going to come back in and play straight away. So we're in a bit of a predicament at the moment, because you want to play with a striker, because I like Cole Palmer. He can play anywhere really, but I do prefer him just slightly further back, where he can sort of drift and go anywhere, because he's so dangerous across every position of the pitch, like as in behind a striker. I think Chelsea fans are begging for Nkunku to come back, really, because albeit he's probably not that player either, they're thinking maybe he can play there as well. So I think maybe a striker is probably a position that Chelsea might look to strengthen in January. But I just, for me, if he is fit, I'd start Broja.
And thoughts on Monday? Obviously, Spurs don't get much against Chelsea. We did last year. It was a good win for Spurs. But for me, I've never been so confident.
I was about to ask you, Jonny, how you feel?
No, well, you know me as that pessimistic Spurs fan. I've never been so confident going into a game. But also for what you said, Chelsea will come at Spurs, and I think that will help Spurs. And likewise, it will probably help Chelsea. I think it could be a very, very open game. I actually think we'll win. I don't think I've ever predicted a Spurs win against Chelsea. But
famous last words.
Gary's looking at me like who's this bloke sitting in this chair?
Daggers.
He's never heard that before.
Yeah.
No, I think we'll be okay. But how do you feel about it?
I think again, I'm more confident for this game than I was for Brentford at home, just purely because I think you being at home means you'll have the ball. I think you'll have a lot of the ball on Monday. And I think that suits us. But again, like you say, I think it could be a quite open game. And I think it will come down to who can take their chances. And at the moment, that's you. That's not us.
So you think
but
Spurs
I know
winning?
we have enough chances to know that in some games we could take them.
Yeah.
I'm not like going into this thinking it's a dead cert you're going to win. I'd probably take a draw at this moment in time, just with it being away from home. But
Come on,
I'm not as
prediction.
confident as I usually would be facing Spurs.
Score prediction. You're going to go 2-2, aren't you?
Yeah, boring. Sit on the fence. 2-2. Well, because, like you say, in the Premier League we tend to play quite well against Spurs. And then last season I sort of have written last season off just as a whole, really, because we were rubbish against everyone. But yeah, I think this is a game that suits Chelsea. I think it does. I think the way you play and the way we want to play, I think it suits us. But that's not to say that you won't cause us problems, because you definitely will the way you've been playing this season. Got to keep Maddison quiet.
Sure. I can't let this moment pass, Liv, without mentioning a tenuous link between Spurs winning the FA Cup in 1991 and your dad, Tim Buzaglo, who in January 1991 scored a hat-trick for Woking against West Brom. Say again? Sorry, I didn't hear that. Say again?
Did you win the FA Cup that
Right,
year?
sorry. That's the tenuous link. So your dad's hat-trick was on a Spurs Road to Wembley VHS. It's been that long since we won the FA Cup. It's on VHS and not DVD. So yeah, that's the tenuous link between your dad scoring a hat-trick in 1991 and Spurs winning the FA Cup for the last time in 91. But, you know, you're doing great. You're on Sky Sports News in the Premier League. Who's the most famous Buzaglo? Is it you or is it still your dad?
Still my dad. It'll always be my dad. I think whenever I go to any ground, any game, someone will come up to me and be like, Buzaglo, not me. It'll always be dad. But I love it. I love it more than he loves it. He hates all the attention. But yeah, he made the name remotely famous, and I hope I can just carry it on by people being like, Buzaglo, that's related to Tim. So I love it way more than he does.
Yeah, it's definitely, I remember the first thing I asked you. Right, Liv, great to get your thoughts. I'll say good luck for Monday. I don't really mean it. But
I'll say good luck to you. I don't mean it as well, Jonny, so.
Brilliant. Liv, thanks for talking to us, getting your insight on Chelsea, and we'll speak soon.
Cheers, Liv.
Thanks, Liv.
Thank you.
Two things. Great to have your dad score a hat-trick in the FA Cup. That would be awesome.
My dad didn't.
I was going to say, I wouldn't know.
My dad claims to have played in the FA Cup. I still don't need to get this story straight. I might bring it back next week.
Which step?
Yeah, exactly. Like 17th qualifying round.
Right.
So I'm not sure what that's about. But he definitely didn't score a hat-trick in the third round away to West Brom. Second thing, lots of Poch positivity from Liv. I follow her on Twitter and all the socials. She's very much Poch in. I'm not sure there are too many Poch out, but there's a lot of Poch positivity. But hopefully that wanes on Monday night.
I think for Chelsea, there should be Poch positivity. He took a long time to get it up and running at Tottenham. Chelsea are going through a huge revolution, a huge number of players transitioning in and out of the team. And yeah, it's very easy to say that, but they've spent so much money. But it takes time. And when he came into Spurs, we forget that he himself wrote in his book, before that Villa game, he was saying, guys, he was saying to his coaching staff, guys, if we don't get a result tonight, pack your bags, right? It took time for him. And it does take time for most managers. I think we're very spoilt and lucky at the moment with Ange, how quickly it seems to have clicked. But for most managers, embedding into a project and setting up a philosophy and a style of play, it takes time. And I agree with Liv, actually, that they have played very well. They've played good football. They're creating chances. And they're at a point where you think to yourself, at some point it will click, hopefully not on Monday night. But I think they will be absolutely fine.
I know they lost to Brentford, but I'm starting to see patterns.
Yeah, 100%.
I look at Man United and I can't see
I was about
to
say, I see much more from Chelsea as a team than I do from United right now. And ultimately, who would you get if you got rid of Poch, right? Like that's the other thing for them. So I think they have to stick with him, and I think he will come good, and they will be a force to be reckoned with under him in months and years to come.
The other thing is, sort of what you said, he's had to start from a lower bar with this Chelsea team. Not only were they further down the Premier League than we were when he joined us, they've had a complete overhaul of the squad. So much less of a settled team that he's got there than perhaps there was at Tottenham.
I don't know. He went through a bit of a revolution with us because if you remember,
but not when he. But I'm saying it wasn't sort of overhanging from the last manager in that sense.
Agreed. He actually got to drive the revolution with the likes of Kabul, Adebayor, and those sorts of players. That there was apparently rumours of that big dressing room bust up with Kane and Mason and the likes of Vertonghen and Lloris, and then the other side of the dressing room, and he oversaw that. So he did oversee a revolution in the dressing room. But I agree, this was one that's kind of happened to him rather than is happening under him, and he can sort of take control.
And I think what he did at Tottenham, at least, would suggest a body of work that he knows what he's doing. There's some managers you do look at other bigger clubs and you think, how's that gonna turn out? I think you'd be silly to not think that it will come good at Chelsea, 100%. Particularly as they are young, a lot of those players, but you can tell that some of them are pretty good players. It's just the thing that doesn't help them is that they're all really young, all at the same time, all just joining a new club. Yeah. If you signed probably any one of those players and stuck them in the Tottenham team, they'd probably make a better side. Do
you think he wanted all of those players? Is he signing the players?
No, probably not. But the one thing you'd say about him is he's very good at. Some managers don't like working with young players. If you stuck a couple of the last Tottenham managers in that Chelsea team again for many reasons, but for certainly one reason, the age profile of the squad would not suit them. Pochettino is possibly, and we said this a lot at Tottenham when he was at Tottenham, why don't they want to sign a couple of players with experience? And a lot of the suggestion was that he much prefers working with young players, whether it's the authority side of things, whether he can mould them, I'm not sure, but it was said a lot that he liked working with young players, and that's what he's got at Chelsea.
Anyway, Sodom, not our manager, not our manager anymore.
But I wish he was. No, I don't really.
Can you remember what happened 2 years ago yesterday? I can't remember what happened
yesterday.
From a Tottenham perspective, it was doing the rounds on social media. Again, going to put this image up on our screens. Nuno subbing Lucas Moura at home to Man United. And I said that the Brentford game from this season felt like a different time. This feels like longer than 2 years ago, based on what we've been through. And that was obviously the nail in Nuno's coffin. And it showed we've come so far, but we had to endure a lot of crap in between Nuno and Postecoglou.
I mean, it's amazing to think that Pochettino only left us in, was it 2019? The Champions League final was 2019. Like it seems like a world away, but it wasn't.
Also, really Brian Hill on the bench there. I mean,
Jimmy.
It was feels like he's been at Tottenham a while, but been Jimmy Hill.
Wake up! He's been and he's gone and come back.
The lesser spotted Ryan Sessegnon.
Well, yeah, exactly. My main memory of that game, and actually I wasn't there, but the main memory I have of that game was the goal Ronaldo scored. Wasn't that game?
Yeah, the volley.
The volley. I don't remember anything else that was good about that game.
I wonder
did we even score? No.
We lost 3-0.
3-0, yeah.
I do wonder if that woman behind the bench has still got that pink hair. But that was 2 years ago yesterday, and we've come a long, long way since then.
It just shows how quickly things can change in football. You know, like last year, everybody said, Spurs, they're never going to come back. We're a big club. We are, for the most part, pretty well run. And it just goes to show, a bit of positivity, some good signings.
Sorry,
and
do
things
not
can
tell
turn
me with
so
that brush.
quickly.
I said over the summer that whatever happened, it had to get better.
No, of course. And you've seen it at the likes of Villa, and this was another comparison I think we made over the summer. They bring in a very, very good manager and go from relegation fodder under Gerrard to European, finishing in European place with Emery. Football can change really very quickly when you're well run and you've got a really good manager there and the right manager.
Well, it's funny you should say that because I was reading an article. I started reading an article on Man United last night.
You didn't finish it?
No, and I'll tell you why I didn't finish
Fell
it.
asleep?
No. Yeah, they had a video on the way they're playing and it made me fall asleep. No, the journalist had written about Ten Hag struggles, and he said, similarly to like we've discussed, I can't see how Man United are playing. And he said, look at what's happening at Brighton and Aston Villa and how they've brought in managers and he's changed the way they've played. And I know it's only 10 games, but
Brighton are struggling.
Well, I can find you another team, specifically the one we talk about a lot on this pod that we all support, that have completely changed the way they're playing in just 10 games. He didn't mention us, so I got really angry, so I stopped reading. But it goes to show you...
No, it's the narratives, isn't it? It's always the narratives, and people will always have their own agendas and their own narratives. My narrative right now is that Brighton are struggling, and this was a guy that a lot of us wanted as manager, myself
included. They're struggling because Europe is taking it out of them.
There you go.
And we don't have Europe, and that's great for us. And also, plus we had the whole... Luckily, they got the manager sorted pretty early. He's had most of the summer, signed the players that he wanted, you hope, or you think, and having all that time week to week on the training ground, I think makes a massive... If we were in Europe this season,
I'm so glad.
I think most of the players would probably have fallen over by now because the squad's not that big and the amount of running and pressing that they're doing, it just... I actually dread to think what could have happened.
I think the best thing that could have happened for us is, you always want to be in Europe. But in reality, the best thing that could have happened for us was a reset and having the chance to be on the training pitch, with a week in between games, rest, recover. And in the summer, the hope will be that 1 or 2 additions to the first team to really get that competitive for the league. And then 3 or 4 for the squad. And then, we're a team and a squad that is primed to really challenge on most fronts. We're close, I think.
Take each game as it comes. Starting with Monday, prediction, Jake Robson. 003, what is your prediction?
003. I am going to go with, I think 2-1 Tottenham.
002?
It's a really difficult one. If Chelsea don't find their scoring boots, then we will win. But they're a team that can cause us problems. They really are. So I'm going to say 3-1 Tottenham. That's on the hope that they don't find their scoring boots. We turn up and play well, and it would be a good statement win. And I know people they're struggling, but if we went and put them away 3-1 with a really convincing performance, they're still Chelsea. They're still good. They will come good, and I think that will say a lot for us.
I think I'm going with 2-1 or 3-1. There's part of me that just... It's almost like law of averages. Spurs are going to lose at some point. When's it going to be? Chelsea not playing well. It's all set up for Chelsea to come and win. I don't think they're good enough to do so. I think the only way they win is if we have an off day, give away a couple of stupid goals, penalties, red cards, whatever. I do think we'll win. I know I predicted the draw against Palace. Something just, again, is irking at me. I think what it is at the moment, I'm loving this stuff. The Ange ball, the way we're playing. I can't get rid of the past yet. It's been 10 games. And it's not just that we normally lose to Chelsea, even though we didn't last year. We've had a fairly good record against them at home in recent years. Just... Is it all coming together for Chelsea to finally turn up? They played well against Arsenal and Liverpool.
I think if Udogie is back, Bissouma didn't pick up his customary card against Palace. Johnson is now a real option, fit. We're as close to a fully fit, primed, ready squad for this game as you could wish to have, with a big week in between games. I think they're playing this week as well.
They're playing Blackburn in the cup.
I mean, it won't make too much difference. It's Blackburn, they'll beat them, and then they've got a good period of time before Monday. But we've got a full week to prep for this game.
All I know is I'm buzzing. I can't wait for next Monday. And it's been a long, long time since I've been so excited. Every week to go to Spurs. And we've only had 4 home games out of 10. I cannot wait to get back there on Monday night.
See you there.
See you there?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe we can find that donut together.
Oh, please. I'd love it.
Right, that's it, gentlemen. Thank you very much for your time and your efforts. See you next week. And up the Spurs.